Rick Spielman was a GM for 10 years with the Vikings. He won this is pretty remarkable. He won that division with Aaron Rodgers 4 times, 6 playoff appearances, drafted Justin Jefferson, Adrian Peterson, Dalvin Cooks, Stephon Diggs. And here's Rick Spielman, former Viking GM, joining us. So what'd you make of my list? Was it a bunch of nonsense? What'd you make of it, Rick?
No, I thought it was good, but the thing that stuck out to me the most that I was looking at on your list is those 4 of those top 12 players were San Francisco 49ers that had the most on your list, which was interesting.
Yeah.
Since they seem to be the underdog, if you want to call them that, or the team that may not have as much talent at the quarterback position as the other teams do, but yet they have the most on your list as far as a number of players.
Let's start with this. You had to hire coaches. And I said, if you look around the league, Belichick now, Sean McDermott, they can't stop top quarterbacks. Okay, like the best defensive guys. Mike Zimmer, I said this until the day it was over. I said, I think Mike Zimmer's a really good coach. But I don't know if it's fair. Dan Quinn, I think there's a ceiling. You tell me, you look around today, because you'll be a GM somewhere else. It's almost that you have to interview. I mean, you really have to go into the interview process, Rick, don't you, thinking, boy, I'd like to find an offensive guy.
I think the number one thing you're looking for is that head coach has to have a relationship with that quarterback. And can a defensive head coach connect with that quarterback? Now, an offensive coach is probably going to be able to because that's his job. But can the defensive coach do the same thing? And just looking back through the history here, and talking to you earlier, the last 2 defensive coaches that faced off in the Super Bowl were Bill Belichick and Dan Quinn. Both of them had great offensive coordinators, Kyle Shanahan, Josh McDaniels, great quarterbacks, and Tom Brady and Matt Ryan when he was rolling at the time. But since then, every head coach that has won a Super Bowl, take out Belichick and Brady, has been an offensive coach with an excellent quarterback.
It's interesting about these quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers went to a junior college. So did Josh Allen. Mahomes didn't have a winning record. You start looking around. Joe Burrow had to transfer. Brady went in the 6th round. You have a very good track record. I mean, you signed Kirk Cousins, but you have a good track record of drafting. And a lot of times the talent is obvious. I mean, Justin Jefferson is absurd. Dalvin Cook. And that is not to in any way, marginalize your pick. They were great players. You were able to see it. But quarterback, Rick, is different. And that there's very few of these guys who went to the prep school and then went to, Ohio State and then everything. A lot of these guys, it's soul, it's character. I mean, go back to Kirk Cousins, who, by the way, has won a lot of games. Is that position now, A, it's so crucial, Rick, and B, it's the hardest, I would argue, to draft. Your takeaway on what the quarterback position means and the ability to get it right.
Well, the one thing, I mean, you can see all the physical ability. You can see how he throws. The thing that, to me, has always been the burning bush question is, does he have that it factor? And how do you measure that? Do you do it through psychological testing? Do you do it through intelligence scores? Do you go through all the analytics, which I know you refer to some as nanalytics?
Yeah.
Because there's 2 different ways to look at those. But there's something about all these great quarterbacks that had a hole in them coming out, but somehow they came and have had a lot of success and have led their teams to a lot of success in the NFL. And we've went as deep as to not only look at the physical traits, try to see how they are at games. I would go to games live to see how they interact with their teammates. What are their personalities? But there's something unique about these guys is when the pressure is on, and some of these guys, you don't have to have a great whole game. But when it's the 4th quarter, the game is on the line. It's 3rd down. You need to keep the chains moving. These guys find a way to get it done. And you can go through all the things that I have spoken about, but truly you have to find the answer to that burning bush question. what make these guys great.
Let me ask you this. Garoppolo's an interesting thing. The Niners obviously moved up to get Trey Lance. I do think, and I'm sure you saw Trey Lance. He played some college football up near you. He's a very raw. I met the kid a couple of times. I really liked him. I thought he worked well with people. I saw him in social settings. I thought he was strong. He's a big, strong kid. I think he has to clean up his delivery a little bit, and I think, the Niners will do that. But it is interesting because they probably do move off Jimmy Garoppolo, and I'm fascinated with your answer here. You're Pittsburgh. You don't really have the guy in house you'd want. You're Denver. Really nice roster. Feels like you're missing a bit of a piece. Would you roll the dice on Garoppolo given his injury history? Because you know what, Rick? Kyle Shanahan's record in this league as a head coach without him starting is not good. So like you said, there's a magic there with Jimmy. There's something there. Would you roll the dice with his injuries?
The one thing that sticks out to me about Jimmy Garoppolo is, and this may be the it factor, he may not be the most talented player in these playoffs and going into these championship games this weekend, but his maturity level, everything that was thrown his way, drafting Trey Lance with a 3rd overall pick, the criticism he gets from the outside, the one thing that you really notice about his maturity, his competitiveness, is he doesn't worry about that. He worries about controlling what I can control, and that's all I can do, and stay focused on that. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen a playoff game up in Green Bay when the San Francisco this past weekend, that an offense won a playoff game, and especially in Lambeau Field, and their offense didn't score a touchdown. But the other thing, too, is that I've experienced this every once in a while. You may not have an elite quarterback, but all of a sudden, something clicks that year. I mean, Case Keenum took us to the NFC Championship game. Guess who he played against? Nick Foles. And then Nick Foles went on to the Super Bowl that year to beat Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. So every once in a while, you'll get a quarterback that may not be as talented as the Joe Burrows, the Mahomes, the Josh Allens of the world, but somehow something's clicking on that football team. And I give a lot of credit to Kyle Shanahan, because they're playing great defense. They turned a game over and won that game off their special teams. They're able to run the ball, and he understands what his team does best. And he puts them in the best position to win games week in and week out. And he puts Jimmy in the best position to win games, because when they can get the running game going, and then they can start doing the play action and letting him let the defense suck up because they're trying to stop the run, and then he hits it on some of these play actions. The biggest thing that I noticed about him in the Dallas game in this last week is he just can't turn the ball over in critical situations, especially in the second half. But they have something going that's unique from all the other teams, is that they're playing as gritty as anyone in this playoffs as a team and as a whole unit. I give a lot of credit to Kyle Shanahan for that.
Well, you guys in Minnesota always gave Aaron Rodgers problems. You won multiple division titles. It is interesting. There's some secret sauce, and you found it. I want to segue to this, and we'll wrap it with this, and I think it's worth a discussion. I think you and I will disagree on this. I'm okay. I don't like the hokey college football overtime where you take out special teams. I think special teams are hugely crucial. They won the Niners the game this weekend. College just eliminates those. I also know, as somebody who loves skiing, the 2 times in my life I've been hurt skiing was on my last run. As your muscles fatigue, the chance for you to get hurt increases later in games. I don't like the idea of Mahomes and Allen playing another 10 minutes, they're tied, and another 10 minutes, they're tied, and what that does, compromising your roster the following week in a playoff game. Because I think Kansas City and Buffalo could play 10 times. I think they'd split. I think at the end of overtime, they'd be tied. So most people want a new overtime, and my takeaway is we've got to not compromise teams the following week. I want it to be fast. You probably disagree, right?
I look at it, and I think, I've been very honored to serve as co-chair of the General Managers Advisory Committee with Tom Telesco, who I have the utmost respect for and one of the bright minds in this league. But I think this will come up to the competition committee. And does it end up being 2 different sets of rules? So, for example, in the regular season, we went through 3 overtime games. We won, lost each of the different ways that you just described. But when you get into the playoffs, and if you lose in the playoffs, okay, you're done. If you lose in the regular season, you're going to get a chance to play the following week. So I understand how maybe you taper the rules back, and plus you got the 17th game now that also takes in player safety. But when you're in situations like this, I think it'll be brought up, whether it changes or not, that both teams at least give one opportunity to touch the ball. A far-out stat that I saw was in 163 games, including playoffs, only 53% of the time does the team that gets the ball first win.
Right.
When it's in the playoffs, right, I think the record is 10-1.
Yep, you're right.
And that's over 90%.
Yep. You know, Rick, it's so funny because I saw that yesterday. It was really interesting you said that. And my takeaway on it was, in the playoffs, you have the best quarterbacks. So when you give the best quarterback the ball first in the overtime, you're in big trouble. In the regular season, it's almost a wash, 50-50. First team to get the ball wins because you got a lot of average quarterbacks. But in the playoffs, I think that's an interesting thing to consider. You go to the playoffs, both teams get a run. I wouldn't be totally opposed to that. That's a good idea. I like that. Oh, by the way, you have a story about Joy Taylor and Jason, her Hall of Fame brother. I want to hear this, Rick, because I know I have it, and I'm fascinated to put her on the spot.
Yeah. No, Joy, I just wanted to let you know how special your family is, and Jason was when I was down in Miami. And happy belated birthday, by the way. And I listened to the podcast, and I believe, I don't want to admit your age, but you did say it on the air, but you don't look anywhere near what your age is.
Oh, thank
but
you.
I remember when I was scouting in Miami, I went to an Akron Zips game on purpose because they rarely have any players that come out since your brother. But your brother was getting inducted into the Akron Zips Hall of Fame that game. So I purposely flew up there. I went down and said hello to him and congratulated him at halftime. And he offered me a ride back on a private jet, which meant the world to me because I knew that getting from Canton, Ohio back to Miami was going to be planes, trains, and automobiles. And for him to even consider taking me back on that plane with him to get me back that same night, I'll never forget that. But that speaks volumes of not only your brother as a player, and I was fortunate enough to be down there in his prime, but who and your family stand for and what type of character you guys have.
Thank you, Rick. That was so nice.
For that.
That was such a nice story. I was very nervous. I had no idea what you were going to say. And generally when people have stories about me, it can go either way. So that went well. No, thank you, Rick. That's
Rick,
very
I
kind.
loved having you on. I'm gonna get you on some podcast stuff because I could talk about this stuff all day. Continued success. You had a great run, and you're going to be back in this league soon. Thanks, man.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
You bet. Vikings.
Thanks, Joy.
Thank you.
Vikings held their way with Green Bay. You go look at Minnesota under Spielman. They had their day. They had a lot of wins in division titles against Aaron Rodgers and Favre. So, well, actually, he would be Aaron Rodgers and not Favre. All right, we got a lot of good stuff here. Yeah, your brother really is nice. He really is.
Yes, he's
not
he's
that you're
the
not
best.
Great too, but we know that because I talk to you every day. But he is.
No, I was genuinely nervous. That really could go either way. Like, oh, I got a story about Joy. Like, well. We'll see how this goes.
Everybody's
Roll the dice.
Everybody's 20s are dubious. And if they're not, shame on you because they should be. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.